Thank you for staying with us. You're still watching The Breakfast on Plus TV Africa. Right now, we'll be discussing education review disciplinary measures in Nigerian schools. A viral video showing Stella Wadigo, a teacher at Chris Mitos International School, slapping a 3-year-old pupil, Abayomi Michael, has led to arrest. The incident, which occurred during a lesson, sparked outrage across Nigeria, with calls for accountability from the school. The Lagos State Domestic and Sexual Violence Agency and Ministry of Education have opened investigations. Michael, hospitalized after the assault, suffered potential ear damage, according to child advocate Ebenezer Omejiali, who called for prosecution and further inquiries into the school. Social media commentator Very Darkman threatened protests if action isn't taken against the teacher. This force emphasized the zero tolerance policy for abuse, urging the public to report further information. The teacher remains in custody and legal proceedings are expected following investigations. Now, joining us to have this review of, disciplinary measures in schools is Dr. Peter Ogudoro. He's an educational researcher. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, good morning. It's my pleasure to join you on the show.
Always a pleasure having you. All right, so we're talking about disciplinary measures in our schools. In your own opinion, how do you think we've done so far when it comes to discipline our children? Because I know growing up, that's when you hear of canes and beatings and stuff. And of course, that's what this teacher was trying to do. But gone are those days. These are new times. Nobody, in fact, now it's being seen as an assault. And especially when something could happen to the child, in this case, a potential ear damage, that's something that no one should even be trying to put their hands on any child whatsoever. But in your own opinion, what's the current state of our disciplinary actions or our disciplinary measures in Nigeria, and how effective are they right now?
Well, across the country and across all levels of our education system, the policy is that you don't beat a child. You don't use corporal punishment to try to instill discipline in children. That's the official policy of all governments, that, to the best of my knowledge. But the interesting situation is the fact that even though that's what is there on paper, many teachers are struggling to accept that position, and they regularly argue that one of the reasons why there's so much indiscipline in the larger society, in the streets, everywhere you go, is the fact that we are no longer disciplining children the way we used to do, decades back. Whether they are right or wrong, that's something that is subject to further scientific evidence. But we know that the matter in our hands today, the matter involving, is it Stella? Is a complicated one. I sympathize with both the child and the teacher, because both of them are going through very difficult experiences at this point in time. For the child, it's not a very good experience. If you do my kind of job and know some of the things I know, you will realize that this kind of experience that a child has at this early stage in his life could be definitely very traumatic and may carry significant implications for the child's development going forward, and may prevent the child from having a normal life, even when he gets to adulthood. If you remember this experience, school may become a place that he doesn't want to have anything to do with, because school reminds him of pain, and so he may not want to. He will look forward to going to school, and so in the future, you see the child always trying to avoid school, and people may just think that, in the Nigerian and African context, they may think that it is a devil that is preventing him from wanting to go to school. For the teacher, we also should be careful how we handle it, because what she has manifested in terms of how she has gone about trying to get the boy to learn is definitely a reflection of where we are as a society. Most Nigerian parents are autocratic in their parenting style. This is the kind of thing they do at home, and they make very unreasonable demands on schools. I see signposts that schools try to use to attract parents and children to their institutions, and some of the adverts say that children start writing at the age of 3. I have one like that, just a 30-second walk from where I live, where you have examples that says children start writing in this school from the age of 3. And that's because that's what parents want to hear. At the age of this boy we are discussing, he should have nothing to do with learning how to write. He should just be playing. In the advanced societies, nobody teaches you how to write at the age of 3. It's uncalled for. This is the time when the child should just play. But can we blame the woman? Yes and no. There is ignorance on her part. She has not been trained. The school owner didn't train her to know what the boundaries are. The government too hasn't played its role well. Sometimes when these kinds of things come up, I just look at it and wonder why we're doing the kind of things we're doing. Government agencies are jumping into the matter and they're pretending to be the ones who are the advocates of the child. But the truth is that they have not trained the teachers on how to relate with children in the education space. And so things go wrong, you start blaming the person you haven't trained. That's not how to be fair. Really, if you go to the Scandinavian region, what you find is that their prisons are very, comfortable places anybody can live in, and the average Nigerian would probably prefer to live in those kinds of environments rather than being free in Nigeria. And the reason why they have made those kinds of places that conducive for people who are put away from society is because governments take responsibility even for crimes that happen in society, because they think that the reason why people even indulge in criminality in many cases is because their needs have not been catered for, they have not been trained, they have not been helped to cope with the challenges they are grappling with. So it's not as straightforward as the things I read on the internet may want to make it look. It's certainly not the right thing to do. But we must be sure that we are not throwing away the child with the bathwater, because the teacher too is a victim of the system. Both the child and the teacher are victims of the system. They are products of systemic flaws that have occasioned what we're experiencing.
All right, so I love the fact that you kind of segued into having to put children almost too early into schools, and you're expecting them to write. And like you said, there is a school just by you that from 3 years old they tell you we can start to write. Do you think they put too much pressures on children? And I'm talking about the parents here now, because for instance, we had a conversation sometime last year when we're talking about the benchmark for children going into universities. They had set a limit, but of course, if most parents want their children to be in school from like 14 or 15 into the university, they want them to start early. I'm a product of that. My father obviously felt, Rume, I've planned your life for you. By 8 years old, I was done with primary school. I was already in JSS1. I went to a federal government college. So by 8 years old, I was already pushed out into the world, into boarding school and secondary school at that. And of course, they expect you to finish early. Or by 16, you need to already, be in university. You need to be thinking of how to wrap up, university. And so that by 18, you're already a master's degree older. Now, they never really think about, the social and psychological impact of this, but they're just trying. I mean, in my own case, it worked out, but in many cases, it may not just work out that way. But do you think at this point, because we're trying as much as possible to have that pride for our kids, we push them too early? And of course, now, these teachers, in this case, are trying their best to impact knowledge as quickly as possible, and then it comes into corporal punishment. Is that what it is? Too much pressure on the child too early?
Yeah, so that's why I was telling you that the matter we are examining is complex, is a complicated situation. Now, if you have followed this development closely, just as I have, you will realize that the teacher is actually describing this child as her child. And that's in the African context. It's not a biological child, but she sees the child as a child. And listening closely, you will realize that the teacher has identified the mother of the child as her friend. Now, if you go further, which most government agencies are not likely to do, they're just treating the matter at the periphery. I won't be surprised to discover eventually that it may be the mother of the child who has actually approach the teacher and says, well, my child is in your school and we are friends, and please please try and put an eye on my child and make sure, you know, he gets the best that the school offers. And so as she probably was doing that, she was doing it thinking she was doing her friend a favor. She wants the child, you know, to grow up very fast, to learn how to write very fast, so that, you know, her friend can get the best that the school she is working in, you know, offers. But unfortunately, it has. And if you have followed it closely, just as I've said before, just as I have, you can see that the mother of the child, in some sense, you know, is identifying with even the teacher, is in pain herself. She is not happy about the development. If you leave her to take a decision on this matter, she is not likely to want the woman to be prosecuted, because she might have, you know, remembered that she is probably an instrument, you know, as we say in Africa, that the devil has used to put this woman, you know, bring the woman, you know, to where she is. If she has made the request, other things being equal, please look after, you know, my child, and then this woman, you know, has gone overboard in doing it. So it's not as simple as we want to, you know, as we want to see it. But it is what it is. That this is where we are. Mothers and fathers should be very careful how we push our children into the school system and get teachers and school owners to want to help us to make them get to Cambridge before they are age 10. This is not a pretty place to be. You remember all other factors equal. The minister before the one we have now, Minister of Education, obviously. One of the reasons why he was relieved of his job was how he handled that matter regarding the 18 years benchmark for those who want to go to university. If the consulted people like us who are professionals in the industry, I probably will agree with that minister that we get children into school too early, and so, but that he was taking a very unprofessional approach to try to correct past mistakes. But we threw that minister away with the bathwater without addressing the fundamental issue he was trying to call attention to. So we are back to it now at square one, and nobody is calling attention to the fact that, in the first place, what is that child doing in a class where they are teaching him how to read and write at that early stage? Why do we want him to start writing letters? Who is he writing letter to? What's the pressure about? But again, you can't blame the parent, because we have what we call in the social sciences social comparison. So all her friends in her neighborhood have also sent their children out at the age of 2. They are all competing.
Hello, sir. We'll definitely try and get him back.
I'm back now.
Okay, fantastic. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so I was saying it's a complicated matter, and so that society has dragged this woman to where she has got to, and so that same society that has dragged her, you know, put her under pressure to get a child to write at the age of 3, is also a society that has turned around and blaming the woman. Even the parents of the child, other things being equal, would have urged her along this line. Please look after my child, ensure that, you know, he learns how to write. His mates are started writing at the age of 2. I don't know why he is not yet writing. And then she tries to do her best to get the child to write, and then provokes what may carry traumatic, you know, implications for the child's development, with very deleterious effect on his, you know, balanced growth and development later. But at the end of the day, it has gone the wrong way, and government agencies now wake up suddenly and they think that they have a job to do. What were they doing when every parent has been trying to get their children to write at the age of 3? That's when they should have started, you know, sounding a note of warning that this is the wrong place to go. So we should learn to do the right things at the right time, and this may be the right opportunity and platform for us to get parents to know that this whole idea of trying to get children to write at the age of 3 is completely uncalled for, and teachers cannot take all the full responsibility for what is going on, because teachers don't compel you to bring their children to them at the age of 18 to get them, you know, started on the writing journey.
All right. So earlier on, you spoke about the fact that people say most children now are spoiled because we do not. You know, there's a cultural thing to this. in Nigeria, in Africa, we know that if you spoil the rod, you're spoiling the child. So it's important that you're also making sure that discipline is with that rod. And over time, that has stopped because now they see it as a violation. And of course, a lot of people now would say that, you know, children are spoiled now because what you just tell them is go to that corner, or you're grounded, or you have timeout. Those are the things that they use, but you don't physically, you know, hit the children, which is now something that is, you know, one of the legal requirements in having schools like this. But how do you maintain discipline, you know, without crossing the boundaries of ethical and legal, you know, those boundaries, making sure that, yes, I can instill discipline into this person, they know what to do part-time, but then I am not crossing those ethical or legal boundaries?
Yeah, for starters, we must not gloss over the fact that at the age of 3, the issue of discipline, you know, is something we have to handle with care. The child doesn't really know what it means. The child's mental development is at a stage where the child may not remember what you told him yesterday. The issue of don't do this, don't do that, do this, do that. The child's brain is not able to remember that. The child learns more by what the child sees in the environment. So role modeling is the best way to train the child at this stage, you know, and at this age. So that's very important that we put it on the table. So whether it's at this stage or at older stages, the most effective instrument for getting children to learn the right, pick up the right attitudes, acquire skills, and have the right knowledge about how society works is for the adults in their environment to model what we want them to become. When I tell parents, as you know, when I train parents and train teachers, and they say we are discussing discipline, I say, well, I have only 2 children, both of them are adults now. Since they were born up till now, I have never raised a finger on any of them.
Wow!
And not for 1 second. It has never happened. But they have turned out to be globally competitive. They have turned out to be young people who have won awards right from their primary school up to where they are now.
Amazing.
They have won awards in morals. They have won awards in academics, in everything you can imagine in the school system, and they are competing at the global stage, and they are faring very well. Why? Because they have seen their dad and their mom model the kind of attitudes, behaviors we wanted them to put up. But what you find is that parents do the wrong things at home, teachers show the wrong examples, and we want the children to behave in the opposite direction. That is not going to happen. You know, you find homes where a phone rings and a father asks the child to pick up the phone and tell the person at the other end that he is not around. He's in a meeting or something like that. You know, those kinds of things, we don't approve of them because you are teaching the child how to tell lies. So if you live a life of integrity, if you live a life that is devoid of all those things that all of us we think are uncalled for, then your child will definitely follow your example. So modeling is the best way to get it right. Anything we want the children to become, we are their heroes. You know, the parents are first and foremost the heroes and heroines of the children. Whatever parents do at home is what the children, you know, pick up. Even when they get to the school system, they find it difficult to disconnect from the examples they have seen at home. And then when they get to the school system, as we say, the child, you know, comes into the world as a clean slate. So parents, the teachers, the school leaders, and other significant persons in their environments are the ones who write on that slate. So when they get to the school system, teachers are writing on that slate, more importantly by the examples they show them. Do they come to school early? Are they polite when they talk to their colleagues? Are they polite when they talk to their children? Do they know how to ask questions? How do they relate with children who don't answer questions correctly? There's, because of poor training, the average teacher expects that, you know, once he explains something once, all the children in the class should understand it and you know, give the right answers the next time.
Okay, Dr. Peter.
But that's not how the world works.
Yeah. So I love that you've spoken about elementary, because these are like for really, really little kids. But how about teenagers? How about people who are already like 8, 10, 12, sometimes 13, people in secondary school? How do you know, insert discipline into them?
Yeah, we have to understand again how the world works. If you miss it
from the elementary
the child
stage,
is the age 7, it becomes difficult for you to achieve what you want when the child gets into teenage years. So you must work hard, when the child is born up to the age of 7. That's when you do your most work. And that's why we encourage fantastic women like you who are career women, when you start having, children, try and create time. Take a year off, take 2 years off. Let's stop worrying about this whole issue of we want multiple, sources of income. That is bringing money, mommy is bringing money. So if you go to work as a mother and you leave home at 6 a.m. and you're coming back home at 8 p.m. is not a good idea, because you are not there to provide the examples that you want to see children manifest in terms of behavior later. So if you get it wrong before the child is 7, it becomes difficult for you to make any significant change in the child when the child gets into teenage years. That is not to say you can't effect any change. You can, but it's much more difficult to get those changes effected when the child gets into their teenage years. But they are still at malleable age, and it's still something you can do before the age of 20. But once the child goes past the age of 20, life becomes very difficult to handle.
From what you've just explained, it just seems like an engine, a well-oiled engine. So the moment you've put everything in place, it's just a workflow. It just starts to work that way. And if you've already instilled everything that is needed for that child's development and growth and, impactful development into them, of course, even when they're already like teenagers, they already know what to do. So it's not like something you have to keep instilling into them. I love that. I think another thing maybe we definitely need to add to our schools is more mentorships, more counseling, things that could help these children, because of course they need to hear people, in as much as they're seeing the examples, they're speaking to people who are role models for them. It will definitely impact their lives. This is where we have to wrap it up here. We want to say thank you so much. It's always a pleasure having you on our show. Thank you, sir.
Do enjoy the rest of the day.
All right, we're speaking with Dr. Peter Ogudoro. He's an educational researcher, and we've just been talking about disciplinary actions in schools, in Nigerian schools. We'll go on a short break. When we return, we'll be discussing military to engage local arms manufacturers for defense. Please stay with us.